Good afternoon, everyone. I am Beth Sarmiento. I am your new ACE recruitment consultant, and I would like to welcome everyone for today's webinar hosted by Gisborne Hospital. So before we proceed, we just want to inform everyone that this webinar is split into three parts. First part will be the employer's part. Second one would be the RMO representatives presentation, and the third one would be the Q&A live session. For those who are interested to ask questions live, they can just use the raise your hand function in the Q&A. And for those who just wanted to put in text-based question, they can just use the Q&A function in Zoom. So please bear in mind that this is recorded. That's why we encourage everyone to make sure that your questions is clear and concise. So I turn over the floor now to our employer for the self-introduction.
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Natalie Atkinson. I'm the RMO coordinator here at Tairāwhiti Gisborne Hospital.
And kia ora, everyone. My name is Alex Washington, and I'm one of the PGY1s at Gisborne Hospital this year.
Kia ora, I'm Harrison. I'm a first year RMO here at Hauora Tairāwhiti here at Gisborne Hospital. I'm currently on my general surgical attachment, and I did in my second quarter, and I did my first quarter in general medicine. I had previously spent some time here whilst I was a student in pediatrics, and I really enjoyed it. I got to know the rest of the house officers here and saw the opportunities that they got, and you know, the relationships that they got to form working a lot of the time one-on-one with the bosses, and that was something that I was really interested in. It's a very high needs community as well, and I think that you could see that all of the households found that rewarding, and that's definitely something that I've found to be the case so far this year. The RMO unit here I knew to be really supportive. They already had the 10 and 4 rosters in place before it became a nationwide thing. The workload is very manageable. Here in Gisborne, every quarter you do 2.5 weekends and 11 long days. You get 4 rostered days off, which always falls next to a weekend, so you get 2 long weekends a quarter, and it's quite nice here because they don't get deducted from your pay. The rent is really cheap here, and you can live in really nice places, you know, walking distance from the beach or on the beach. Definitely found the lifestyle here 10 out of 10. For a large portion of the year, you can surf before and after work, which is pretty unbeatable. Also, there's lots of really nice tramping around, and Gisborne's quite a sporty place, so if you're into sport, there's lots to do.
Kia ora, I'm Sarah, one of the PGY2s at Tairāwhiti DHB in Gisborne. I chose to work at Gisborne Hospital because of the fun experience I had on a GP placement up here in training intern year. I've loved it from the time that I first arrived here with the great people and the great community in Gisborne. This was also awesome outside of work, living in a beachfront house with a group of other house officers, making great friends with the other house officers in Gisborne, and the experiences up at the hospital, surfing, trips up the coast, and fun times on the weekends.
I te rangi te maunga ko ua nui a roa matua te awa, ko te atanga hauti te iwi, ko Kiriana ki nipe ahau. Kia ora, my name is Kiriana. I'm a PGY2 here at Hauora Tairāwhiti, and I'm currently on the pediatrics run. The first year here I really enjoyed it. I did 6 months of Gen Med, Gen Surg and Orthopedics, and it was all really good. We didn't have registrars last year, but we now have medical registrars, and we've got the one surgical registrar. So last year I got lots of opportunities to do things kind of with the consultants one-on-one. I think having the registrars here this year is actually a bit of a benefit as well, because it means you don't have to call the consultant straight away. You've got a bit more support, kind of a next step up there, but you still get lots and lots of opportunities to see patients. Second year runs that I'm doing this year, I'm doing 6 months of PEDS, including the Diploma of Child Health through Otago Uni and APLS, which was all supported by the hospital. And I'm also going to do 3 months of ED and 3 months of relief. I think what attracts a lot of people to come here is you get an anaesthetics and ED run if you choose to do that. Which a lot of people enjoy. You get to do intubations and lots of time in theatre.
So take a leap and move to Tairāwhiti DHB.
Cool. Thanks, Beth.
Okay.
So we'll just do a short talk really, just to help maybe help you make your decisions, give you some information. So can we go to the next slide, Beth? Yeah, so a little bit about the region and the hospital. Tairāwhiti actually means the coast upon which the sun shines across the water. That's the meaning of it. Not that we've had a lot of sun this year. It's probably been the worst summer that we've had. So hopefully if you guys come, it'll be an improvement next summer. But the hospital itself services about 55,000 approximately. In town here, 45,000, and the surrounding region a further 10,000. And it's bounded, the boundaries are just before Nuhaka, which is on the way to Wairoa, up to Marawai, which is a little one-hick town that you go through before the gorge to Aportiki, and up at Hicks Bay on the East Cape. As regarding our population, we actually have the highest amount of Maori in New Zealand, including Northland. So it's about 52% of the population here is Maori. We have Pacifica and Asian communities. In Pacifica, we have a lot of Tongans here in Gisborne, have settled here. But the main industry is actually forestry, which is why we have excuse me, about 5 orthopods, because as you know, forestry is full of accidents, the #1 industry for accidents actually. So we've got farming, winery, big food and seed processing plants here in Gisborne as well. But it's really known for its sunshine usually, and we are first to see the light in the height of summer. It starts getting light at about 4:45 in the morning, actually. But it's also known for its surfing, obviously R&B music festival, and the other thing, it's of cultural significance, Gisborne, because young Nick's Head is where Captain Cook the first sighted land in New Zealand. So it's quite unique. It's a place that is bicultural. A lot of the signs are in Maori and English. You can walk into a room, 5 beds, and everyone is talking to their Maori in there. But it's a beautiful region. It's actually the least travelled region in New Zealand by New Zealanders, probably to do with the isolation. But coming from South Island, that's why I like it, because there's less people in this region. Thanks, Beth. The hospital itself is about 110 beds, and it includes Te Puia Springs Rural Hospital, which is 100 k's up the coast. But you don't really go up there in your first year. In your second year, you may, depending on the department you work in. Sometimes the interns go up to accompany the consultants or the clinics up there for the day. As far as the hospital itself, it was built in 1985, I think. We're building a new mental health unit at the moment. Last year, they built a new hospice on site. And so we're the main campus. All the departments are actually here on site, except for mental health, community, and public health departments. That's on a campus in town. But last year also we started Otago University trainee intern program here, and we have a research facility on site here. Most of the serious patients get flown over to Waikato Hospital from here, or if they're children, up to Starship in Auckland. But yeah, it's a small hospital, so sort of like it's friendly and everyone knows everyone. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, Beth. So regarding the ACE process itself, every year we get 10 first year house officers through ACE. And usually we have a split of around 50-50, Auckland and Otago medical schools. But when we get the application, there's 5 of us on the ranking panel, which is the Chief Medical Officer, the 2 pre-vocational educational supervisors, myself and a local GP. He's Maori who speaks fluent Maori, by the way. He did his intern years here at Gisborne. Just regarding the process itself, we don't do interviews at all at any stage with ACE, and I also don't allow trainee interns to come and visit. I mean, they can if they know someone here, but I don't actually meet them, and part of the reason for that is that ACE is supposed to be a fair and transparent process. So it is, excuse me, disadvantaging some TIs that don't have the resources or the time to make it here in person. So ACE is supposed to be purely based on paper, all applications. So that's the reason why. But we also do not accept late starters. Everyone has to start in January Q1. For couples, we do accept them, but we only rank 1 couple, if at all. And the reason for that is that couples often want time off together, and they want their shifts all together. So it sort of unfairly disadvantages the others on the roster because it's a small 10-person roster in the first year. But I think the last 3 years we haven't ranked any couple at all. So what's essential? What is essential is to have a cover letter. So your application is not considered if you don't include a cover letter. So they should be 1 page, and basically they're just explaining who you are, introducing yourself, the reason why you want to come here, and it's good to include also your personal interests and your career interests, what you're leaning towards at this stage. But it's also good to have, but not essential, local connections. As I said, Gisborne's an isolated region, so we kind of like to know that you've got a support base. If that's that you're coming with friends here, all applying together, you're coming with a partner who's got a job here, or you have family here, whānau here, you know doctors who are working here already. That's good to mention that in your cover letter. But also those that have done attachments here or done their trainee intern year here, they sort of know what they're getting themselves in for. So whilst it's good for them, it is an essential, but also if you can speak to reo, that's also desirable. Just a quick word on references, to have at least 1, maybe 2 hospital-based references. We had an applicant who had 3 references and none of them were hospital-based. I think it was a travel clinic was one was GP, and I can't remember the other. But yeah, that's just of note, your references. So basically what we're looking for is a good fit for Gisborne, because it isn't for everyone. But I think those that want to come here really enjoy their time here. I would say probably one of the things that we try and look at and emphasize is that it's a small limited pool of doctors, so really being a good team player is really important. There is nowhere to hide, and unlike the big DHBs here, you've got to do the work, and it's noticeable if you're not doing the work, but also help your colleagues out and just be a good team player is something that we really look for. Thanks, Beth. So PGY1 and PGY2 choices in your first year. Your choices are general medicine, general surgical, orthopedics, ENT, and a repeat of either Gen Surg or Gen Med. Orthopedics, you don't have to do that run. There's 2 house officers each quarter, so there's 2 house officers that actually miss out on orthopedics. And when we allocate attachments, we ask for your preferences, and we try and align it with your career interests. Not everyone wants to do orthopedics. But general medicine, there's 4 house officers in there every quarter, 3 are ward-based, And then one house officer does rehab day unit, medical day unit, and mental health unit. And then they swap halfway through the quarter with one of the ward-based house officers. Gen Surge, you work one-on-one with a consultant, so you have the consultant's workload, plus 2/10 of the job is components made up of, for one run, it's lithotripsy patients. We have a mobile bus that comes through. So I guess if any of those patients are admitted overnight, we have visiting urologists, so urology. We don't have our O&G run here, so there is a gynae component with one of the Gen Surge consultants on that run. I think you assist in theatre with C-sections under that. And then the other one is adult dental eyes for Gen Surge. Orthopedics ENT, as I said, there's 2 on that run every quarter, and I believe one house officer works in the ward for the week and the other one assists in theatre, and they swap week about with that. Thanks, Beth. In your second year, you've got a choice of peds, anaesthetics was mentioned in the video. There's some after-hour shift in the ED with that. The anaesthetics run is actually the run that everyone wants. So obviously 1 per quarter, so 4 out of 10 people can do that. As I said, it aligns with your career interests and plans with that. But it's a purely training run, the anaesthetic run. ED, there's 2 every quarter that work in ED. The peds run, you can two in that. You can either do 3 months or a 6-month run there, and we support you doing the Diploma of Child Health. We have 3 relievers every quarter, and they're pooled. So you work ED, peds, med, surge, and ortho. I ask for your preferences, and I try and align that with what the department that you'd like to work in. Not always possible, but I do try. And then we have community-based attachments. As you know, they're mandatory now. So one is a combined rural GP run. You work at a practice out half an hour out of town, and then 3 days in public, 2 days, sorry, in public health, and 3 days out at the rural GP practice. And the other CBA option is general practice in town. Thanks, Beth. So PGY3, basically we have lots of junior registrar positions here. In medicine, there's 9. At the moment, there's 9. So one of them is an accredited RACP advanced trainee post, but there's 8 other positions which could be made up of all basic trainees or all non-trainees. ED, our ED department here is not ASIM accredited. So, but they are rural hospital medicine accredited, but the positions there are non-training. I believe ED are in the process of applying for accreditation with the Australasian College of Emergency Medicine at the moment. We've got 2 psychiatric registrar positions. They're both non-training. Surgical, two positions with that. One's a set trainee, so they're assigned by the college, RACs. But the other one's a non-training position. And then we have an ophthalmology registrar non-training position. At the moment it's part-time, but I believe next year it could be increased to full-time. So there's lots of options if you want to stay on past your first 2 years here. Thanks, Beth. Just regarding your roster, so no nights at all. You don't work any nights at all in your first year here. Which I think is a good thing. Yeah, and every quarter you work 2 full weekends, which is 2 long days. As was mentioned in the video, we have 10-4 here, safe hours rostering. So when you work a full weekend, the Thursday and Friday, as well as obviously the Saturday and Sunday, are RDOs. And then you work another weekend in the quarter that's just 1 long day only, and 11 evening shifts per quarter. So the majority of RMOs actually here are Stones members, but in the house offices, it's Stones. And so that's paid at category D, which is 92,200. but that MECA expires in December, and my understanding is that will be increasing because they haven't increased the non-urban salary scale for the last 2 MECAs. So I think it's on the card that you'll probably be paid more than that by the time you get here. Thanks, Beth. Yeah, so sorry, just back one. Annual leave. Yeah, so annual leave, I ask for all your requests for annual leave before I write the roster for the quarter. And usually, you can usually get about a week off every quarter. I also ask if you want to work weekends on or off. People are running marathons and such. They may not want to use their annual leave. So if they work a full weekend, they know they're going to get the 4 days off the following week. So that's fine where I can. I try and accommodate that. Some of the docs attach annual leave to their RDOs. So they're having 6 days off and only using 2 days annual leave. That's also fine. I try and accommodate that where I can. So it's fairly flexible here. I can give short notice leave. It's considered on a case-by-case basis. If you're going to be in a bridal party overseas, for example, you can apply for leave well in advance, obviously, to book tickets and such. That's also okay. That's fine. I plot out all the rosters for the whole year, actually, so you sort of know where we're at with that. Thanks, Beth. Medical education leave, MEL. No MEL is given at all in their first year. The PESs like you to concentrate on getting your general scope. But it's very rare that you get MEL declined, actually, here. We're pretty good for that. We've got a good reputation for it. So the sort of courses that a lot of the PGY2s do here, Diploma of Child Health, as mentioned, APLS, General Surgical Sciences exam, GSSE, which is the entry for the surgical training program, basic course down at Hawke's Bay, and point of care for ultrasound, which is pretty popular as well. A lot of the PGY2s do that as well. Just mentioning that some sitting GSSE, if they do it through Otago, asked to do the residential course in Dunedin for 5 weeks. Because they changed all the quarters, it all sits in the one quarter now, 5 weeks off. So that we can only ever give that to two doctors. Otherwise, you'd be doing it through Auckland, which I think is 1 evening training session a week for GSSE if you do it through Auckland. The reason we can only give it for 2 maximum is because we're a small hospital. So, and actually, I believe a lot of hospitals don't actually allow it at house officer level, but they do here. So it's because we need the doctors on the floor. So for roster implications, it can only be a maximum 2 docs doing that every year. Just last year, we appointed a PDOC, which is a pre-vocational director of training and education, Steve Hudson, one of our general surgeons. So he looks after the training program, and he's the person that approves all the MEL, as well as the CMO approves regarding expenses, reimbursement, etc. So we have a training committee that started last year, and you have the opportunity to be a house officer representative on that. It's a 2-year term. So we have PGY1 and a PGY2 rep. And they come to those meetings where it's discussed the formal training program for PGY1s, tweaking it, reviewing it, improving it, etc., getting feedback from house officers, and so that's working quite good. And then we separated out PGY2 training, so they can actually access, the PGY2 docs can access registrar and department training as well. Thanks, Beth. So I'll hand over to Alex, who's our PGY1 house officer here, and she can have a bit of a chat with you all.
All right. So hi, everyone. I'm Alex, and I'll just give you a brief background on myself, or my medical training, I guess. So I'm actually a postgrad. I came through Otago and I did my clinical years in Christchurch and then my final TI year in Nelson. So I'd spent all of my time in the South Island. If you go to the next slide, Beth, I think there's some things. Yeah, so first off, like, why did I pick coming to Tairāwhiti? For me, it was pretty important to be in a small hospital. I think after my experience in Nelson, I knew that a small hospital had a lot of the things that I really liked. I like the community that you get in a small hospital. You know so many of the people that you're working with, and that's not just the doctors, that's everyone, MDT, nursing staff, orderlies, everyone. And I think that that's a really cool experience in itself. I wanted to move north and experience living in the North Island. There's also obviously a lot more cultural diversity up here than there is in the South Island. I had heard really good things, to be honest. I was really tossing up about where I might want to go, and I had looked into a lot of different places and talked to a lot of people. And I had honestly only heard really good things about coming to Gizzy, and that was both about the hospital and outside of the hospital. And I really liked a lot of the runs that were offered here. So I think that you just get such a diverse experience in both PGY1 and PGY2 that a lot of other hospitals, you just wouldn't get that opportunity. So I was, yeah, pretty sold on a lot of that. Also, I really like good weather. I really like warm places and the outdoors, and so Gizzy has a lot of that. Obviously this summer not so much, but we're crossing our fingers for next summer. In terms of the PGY1 attachment, so I started on the general medical run that's split into both kind of rehab and gen med. So my first 6 or 7 weeks I was covering the rehab ward, which was about 3 days a week, house officer only ward rounds, which was honestly a really cool experience to just kind of develop my own style of running ward rounds and keeping on my patients. And I just gained like so much confidence and experience getting to do that. But I was also really well supported by the consultant who would round with me on the other days and who was always in the hospital. And on that run, you also cover the psych unit. So you also get some psych experience doing medicals and reviews and things down there, which was also just a really cool thing to get to tack on to the side of it. Then I went on to the medical run for the final sort of 6-7 weeks of that quarter. So I swapped with one of the other house officers. So on medicine, there are 3 teams, and so house officer per team. You have registrars. It's a fairly busy run, but we still managed to get out mostly by 4 o'clock. And that's because when one team is busy, there's only 3 of you as the house officers, so you'll often help each other out with the workload to make it more even, get on time. And honestly, the medical department here is so lovely. It was a really fun run. And now I'm on to ortho ENT. So there's just 2 of us on that at the moment. And what we do is we swap, as Nat was saying earlier, you do one of you covering the wards for 1 week and the other one in theatre. So this week I'm in theatre. So I actually just came from theatre to come here. We did a hip replacement this morning and get to do all the acute stuff throughout the week. So it's a really cool experience for actual theatre experience and getting to spend time with your bosses, because we have no orthopaedic registrars here. The other thing is when you're on surgery here, you are also doing the admitting and assessment of a lot of the patients that come in through ED during the day, which is also a cool experience because we don't have the registrars, so that's you. My next run is going to be surgery, general surgery with gynae. And again, as Nat was saying, I'll get to be doing C-sections for that. I'll be getting to kind of cover a gynae obs role as well as surgery. So I'm very excited for that. And then in terms of what has surprised me, I'll start with the bad. I think moving to Gizzy, I knew it was going to be a little bit isolating. A cyclone doesn't help with that, obviously. But I think the main thing, I don't mind the isolation as much because there's actually so much to do here, But if you're planning to go back to the South Island a lot, if you're someone who has a lot of friends and family there, it's quite expensive and you need a bit of time because you need 2 flights to go back and forth every time. So I would definitely think about that if that's something that you would want to be doing a lot. You kind of need to plan ahead. In terms of something in the hospital that I think I knew was going to be the case, but sometimes a little bit scary, is the fact that after hours, there is 1 house officer covering surgical, 1 house officer covering medical, you're usually PGY1s, and we should always have a medical registrar, but sometimes if they're understaffed, we have another house officer. So that means that for things like rapid responses and stuff like that, you may only have a couple of house officers as the doctors. You'll have a DNM and some other staff around, and sometimes you'll get an ED doctor as well. But it's definitely a bit daunting to start. I think it does really increase your confidence pretty quickly though, and you kind of get a lot of cool experience to step up, which you're going to have to do at some stage anyway. So yeah, something to keep in mind though, that will hit you when you go. In terms of the good things, I think getting to spend a lot of time with the consultants is something I have really enjoyed. I was definitely a bit worried about having to kind of call the consultants all the time when I was admitting patients or after hours, but they've honestly all been super approachable, and I feel like I'm on really good terms with them all. They often sit with us at lunch, and it's just a cool experience that you wouldn't get in a lot of other hospitals where there's much more of a hierarchy. And I think that that's really good for your professional development as well. And something that's surprised me outside of the hospital, I think, in a good way, is that Gizzy has a really cool community of young people that have moved here for the lifestyle. And I definitely wasn't expecting that, but of kind of like the 20s to 30s age, there are actually so many people from all over New Zealand and also overseas that have moved here in order to surf and just kind of live a more chilled life, and really soak up everything that this region has to offer. And they're all super welcoming and lovely because they've all moved here, they're all in the same boat. And already I kind of feel like I'm getting a bit embedded in that, which is really fun. A day in the life, I think that's probably, if you've done, obviously TI runs and things, similar to how a day in the life of a house officer goes, but something that might be different to big hospitals is that what we do here is we'll often come in at maybe 7:30, run out, print our list, do the ward round with the consultants, and often it's just a house officer and a consultant. And then the rest of the day you are sorting jobs, obviously, but often you are admitting or in theatre, as I said before. So you get a really diverse day. So that's pretty cool. And then ideally leaving at 4 o'clock because you've tied up your jobs and you can go surfing or running or biking or, doing anything that Gizzy has to offer. So yeah, I think that's probably my wee overview of what I've liked about Gizzy and where I've come, and yeah, what I've really loved about it.
Cool. Just a couple of more things, Alex. What about how did you find finding a flat here and the cafe, the food?
Good questions. So finding a flat can be hard, I'll be honest. I think it has gotten harder over the last couple of years that there's more of a housing crisis here. Obviously, if you're coming working as a doctor, you're a good candidate, but it helps if you know people or if you reach out to people who are already here. Like I always know people, it seems like, that are looking to fill rooms in houses or looking to fill a place. But if you go through the normal sort of rental pathways, it can be difficult, and we struggled. We got denied from quite a few houses when we first came, and it was through word of mouth in a Facebook group, I think, that we found a flat, which we're super happy with, but it can be difficult. And also rental prices have gone up in the last few years as well. So it's not like Auckland prices, but it's not super cheap anymore. So that's something to know. In terms of the CAF, it's a small hospital, so you're not going to have like a crazy range of options. But I'm sure that if you're tuning into this, you're probably aware of that. But honestly, I've been pretty happy with the food. So I'm vegetarian, and pretty much my options on the daily, there's always a hot option for vegetarian and a hot option for meat. There's a range of sandwiches, there's sushi, which I love, and I get a lot of veggie sushi, and the CAF staff will put that away for you as well if they know that you're veggie, or if they know that you want it. And then there's a range of things like salads and muffins and pineapple. I have pineapple like every day. We get ice blocks and all sorts of like snacks and things. So yeah, I haven't gotten sick of it yet.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. So I'll probably just finish with last page there on point of difference. Why choose us? Yeah, just a couple of things as Alex mentioned. Thanks, Beth. This is a hospital where it's more generalist, and the experience you get in such a wide variety, I guess it gives you a good base to decide where you want to go for your career from that point, which is good. And of course, because it's small, a lot more hands-on experience and theatre time can be had here. I would say probably culturally, one of the feedbacks I've gotten from a lot of docs, actually, it's not just a tick box exercise. You actually live it and experience it here. In your orientation week, on the Friday at noon, you go up the coast to one of the small rural maraes and stay overnight, and that's a good chance for everyone to sort of get to know each other as well before you hit the floor running. And also in your orientation work, you do the workshop to kanga best practice, a bit of role playing and things like that. So and I roster you off to attend the next hospital pohari. So certainly you get a lot of education in that area. And just the fact that, as Alex said, it's small and supportive culture here, nice place to work, everyone knows everyone, and we have plenty of free parking. We did have 2 traffic lights in town, but they've turned one to a roundabout. The other one looks like they're in the process of doing that. So I think travel time, if you live in the beachside suburbs, it's only no more than 10 minutes to get to work. But you know, it's laid back and it's a nice place to live, and generally it's great weather, and it's a place where you make your own fun. It's not where you come for fine dining, but it's more having barbies in your backyard and weekends away and hiking and outdoors and things like that. So I guess that's it. We'll wrap it up for Q&A, Beth, now.
Currently, we don't have any text-based questions, and we don't have any live questions so far. But this is a question that I commonly get from the emails from the applicants. I just want to ask on behalf of them, does securing 2 references from one placement affects employers' assessment and ranking?
Sorry, does
securing 2 references from one placement affects employers' assessment and ranking?
No, I wouldn't say it affects it, but you're affecting your own desirability, because it's good to have, and I did mention that, references from different areas, different placements. So while it's, if you've got 2 that are GP, well, and just 1 hospital, I mean, you're applying for a hospital system, so I guess it's an individual choice. But yeah, as I said, you're limiting the variety. We like to see that you've worked in a variety of settings.
Yeah. In the ACE perspective, we really encourage everyone to secure at least 3 references from 3 core curriculum placements. However, there are some situations where applicants are placed in a situation where they are really limited to getting, references from very limited core placements. So they sometimes end up having only be able to get 2 references from just one core placement, core curriculum placement, and the other one would be from another placement as well. So basically, this is the common question that I get from them. But I always tell them that we encourage as much as they could. If they could get 3 references from 3 different placements, that would be best.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to ask any tip from our RMO representative as to application for, everyone is really very busy securing references as of this time in order for them to be able to complete all the requirements for their ACE application. Do you have any tip for them?
I think just get onto it early, which is easier said than done sometimes. I know that if you are doing elective early on, things like that, it can be really hard to try and get on top of things like references. But I would think about on every run that you're on, about who you might ask a reference from, maybe approach someone early and say that you are thinking about asking them for a reference before you even do. And then in terms of just getting everything teed up, you can start your application, online before you submit it. I started mine, I think, months early, just so I saw everything that I needed to get done. So I definitely recommend that. And then in terms of cover letters, probably don't leave it until the last minute. I know that most people probably do, but just think really hard about exactly why you want to go to a place and why you think you would be a good fit for it, because at the end of the day, that's what they're looking for, and that's why you want to go there. And if you can really kind of let that, come across well, that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah. Just to reiterate, that is because you can tell generic letters where people are cutting and pasting the DHB contact details. And so, as Alex said, really think about your number one choice and go really hard for that. It comes across in the letter. You can see quite quickly. And the thing is, we're dealing with hundreds of applications, so your cover letter is extremely important. Take some time, make sure it's got no mistakes, it's addressed properly, and it's really important, your cover letter, quite frankly. Yeah, probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Okay. One last question that I'd like to ask on their behalf. Transferring from one region to another is kind of difficult. There are so many adjustments, definitely, especially if you came from the city going to a little, remote area. But how do you make sure that there is a support provided for them in order for them to be able to cope with that adjustment or those, the changes that they're gonna have when they go to Gisborne?
Is that addressed to me or?
Yes, addressed to employer, and yeah.
I think. Well, I've been about 16 years in the RMO unit, so I'm pretty experienced. But last year, because when I first came here in 2010, there were 16 house officers, and now there's 21 house officers and 23 registrars. So obviously my workload was I was swamped. So I do have appointed a part-time admin person for the RMO unit. That's helped, and Jackie's great, and she gets onto all those onboarding processes straight away, pretty much as soon as they're matched, and we've gotten the letter offer out and come back accepted. So I think some of those processes are fairly well honed and streamlined with regard to that. And I put out to all the docs leaving, if you want to hand over your flat, and lots of people in the community as well. Excuse me, send me details and pics of properties that they have that they want to rent out, and I make sure that's passed on straight away to the incoming docs and things like that, trying to help with all that sort of onboarding processes. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that would be all. I don't have further questions, and I would really want to thank you, Natalie and Alex, for really giving your time for this webinar. And I'd just like to remind the attendees to make sure to visit the ACE RMO website to be able to get reminded of the key dates, very important key dates. And yeah, I would like to say good luck to their application for this year's intake. And that's all for now. Thank you, Gisborne Hospital, for a wonderful webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.